Hey everyone, this is just a quick video to show you how I do a solar limb image like this one. It's slightly different from how I do a full solar disk. I use a Powermate and I use IMPPG for processing as well, so I'll show you the differences. But the setup and capture are more or less the same, so I'll start off as a variation on this video where I go a little bit more in detail into setting up, tuning, focusing, and so on. So I've got my little 40mm Lunt here on an HEQ5 Pro. I've aligned to the sun and it's tracking it. The camera here is a ZWO ASI174mm mono. And the one thing I've done differently from the previous process is I've included a 2.5 times Powermate, or you might want to use a Barlow. When it comes to focusing, I've gone into it more in detail in the previous video, but basically it's the same principle. For coarse focus, the diagonal slides in and out, and then for fine focusing, it's here on the helical focuser. If you are using a Barlow or a Powermate, the diagonal slides out just a little bit further than with the camera alone. Of course, if you have an upgraded focuser or an electronic assist, this will go much easier, but if you're just starting out and you're doing it manually, this is how I do it. When it comes to capture, I decrease exposure so the sun is slightly dim, and I select high speed mode, turbo USB, and maximum frame rate to get as many frames as I can because I'm using larger regions of interest. Seeing is not great, so I capture a lot more frames than you may need to, but my laptop is good, so I will try and get about 10,000 frames and stack the best out of those. With the processing, I will stack in AutoStacker as usual, only this time I will select surface instead of planet. I will choose a distinctive spot as my anchor and hit analyze. The quality graph is not too bad. I made sure to image when the sun was high in the sky, but before it got too hot. I will let AutoStacker do my alignment points for me. For the size of my image, I'll choose size 120. And because I have a lot of frames, I'll only stack about 10% of best ones. This should be enough, and stack. Now, unlike the solar disk, which I prefer to do in Registacks, when it comes to a close-up like this, I prefer to do this in IMPPG. It's a free program for PC and does really well for solar processing. It has a nice sharpening tool here and a tone curve editor here, which I'll use. It gives a small box, which is the area where the edits will be applied, but if you want to see the edits applied to the whole image as you go, it's this button here. The so-called Lucy Richardson sharpening is already applied to a certain level, but I'd like a touch more, and I think the image can take it, so I'll just up it a little bit, and I'll check prevent ringing below. Next is the curve editor. If you've seen from many of my previous images or videos, I like an inverted image of the sun, because I think it gives it that feeling of looking at a round 3D object. So I'll do the same thing here, and I'll show you which curve I use and then how you can modify it to your preferences. The first thing I do is click and drag all the way to the left. Inverting this left-hand side gives me control over how dark I want the background to be, and then I do a very similar curve to the one I use on full disk to invert the image. So basically a very tall mountain with a gradual slope down. Each of these points controls some aspect of the image. The first will reveal your prominences. I just want to find a good balance between showing them and blowing them out. Next will control the bright detail on the limb and highlights in the prominences. At the top is your limb edge contrast. Going further down, this one will control the general brightness of the sun's surface, and the last one can bring a bit more contrast to the surface. After I've adjusted the image the way I want it, I will click Save, and my preferred output is a 16-bit TIFF. Now, IMPPG only works in monochrome, so the output is a monochrome file. If you're happy to leave your image black and white, then this can be the end of it, really. But if you want to colorize it, then you need an editing program like Photoshop, or in my case, GIMP, which is free. Because the file is monochrome, I won't be able to colorize it until it's turned into RGB. So I'll go to Colors tab and click on Components, then Compose. This will create a 3-layer RGB image that I can then use curves for to colorize. If I go to curves, choose red channel, pull it away, then choose blue channel, pull it away in the opposite direction, this will create a false color that I can then tweak as I wish. This is basically it. Any other tweaks such as contrast or highlights can all be done afterwards, and sometimes it just needs nothing at all. The only other thing, if you're posting on Facebook or Instagram or something like that, would be to scale your image to 2048 pixels on the longest edge, because that's said to help with that dreaded Facebook compression. I hope this helps, and clear skies, everyone.